Last year, a man his age fell in his own bathroom and never lived at home again. That's not a headline. That's a phone call many families in America know too well. And that's why this matters. Because the most dangerous moments after 70 don't happen in hospitals. They happen on ordinary mornings. At home. Doing things you've done your entire life. A man in his early 70s opens his garage door. No drama, no build-up. He reaches for the handle the same way he's done for decades. The door lifts, light comes in, and there it is. His old pickup truck. Nothing special about it. A few scratches, a dent on the side, paid off years ago. But he pauses, not because of nostalgia. Because somewhere deep inside, a question flashes through his body faster than a thought. Can I still do this today? He's not thinking about hiking mountains. He's not thinking about marathons. He's thinking about Walmart, about Home Depot, about pushing a cart, about lifting a bag of groceries, about getting back home safely, things nobody applauds, things nobody posts online. Yet according to the CDC, nearly 1 in 4 adults over 70 experiences a serious injury each year. Most of them from simple falls during everyday activities. Not accidents, routines. He looks at the truck again. Driving used to mean freedom. Now it means risk. He knows people who stopped driving just for a while. They never started again. One friend sold his house after a minor stroke. Another moved into assisted living because he didn't feel safe cooking anymore. A woman he used to have coffee with stopped showing up. First to church, then to calls, then to life. No tragedy, just quiet disappearance. In America, over 800,000 seniors move into assisted living every year. Most of them didn't plan to. Most of them didn't think it would happen that year. That's the part nobody warns you about. Aging doesn't arrive with sirens. It arrives disguised as a normal morning. He steps into the garage. His legs feel stiff, not broken, not weak. Just slower. His balance adjusts automatically, the way it's learned to do over decades. He notices that now, things he never noticed before. He remembers a conversation from last month. A neighbor said, "I'm still healthy. I just can't do the little things anymore." That sentence stayed with him, because after 70, health isn't about what doctors say. It's about what your body quietly allows you to keep doing. In the U.S., more than 40% of adults over 70 report difficulty with basic daily activities. Walking, cooking, standing, remembering small things. Not all at once, one by one. And once one thing goes, others tend to follow. That's what scares people. Not pain, not death, loss of independence. And here's what most people don't realize until they're already losing it. There are 7 simple abilities that quietly separate those who live well in their 70s from those who begin to struggle. Here's the encouraging part. You don't need all 7. If you can still do 4 or 5, you're doing wonderfully. You're not behind. You're not failing. You're doing better than you think. So what are these abilities? Stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll know exactly what to focus on to protect your independence, your joy, and your dignity well into your 80s and beyond. And if this feels personal, it probably is. Go ahead and hit like. Comment your age. Let's see who's here today. He grips his keys. For a moment, he considers staying home. Then he doesn't. Because deep down, he understands something many people only realize when it's too late. Living well after 70 isn't about being strong. It's about holding on to the small abilities that quietly hold your entire life together. He steps toward the truck, and without knowing it yet, he's about to learn which ones truly matter. For most of our lives, we're taught to measure success the same way. How much we earned, how hard we worked, how strong we were, how much we could handle. But something changes after 70. Money matters less than it used to. Youth is no longer the standard. And strength, in the way we once understood it, quietly steps aside. What takes its place is something far more important, the ability to live on your own terms. After 70, A good life is no longer measured by what you achieved years ago. It's measured by what you can still do today, safely, confidently, and without needing permission. That's the part many people miss. Because in America, aging is often discussed in extremes. Either you're doing great, or you're not doing well at all. The truth lives in the middle. According to gerontology research published by institutions like the National Institute on Aging, independence in later life doesn't disappear all at once. It fades through small losses, often unnoticed at first. And the people who continue to live well into their 70s and 80s aren't necessarily healthier, richer, or luckier. They're more capable in quiet ways. Ways that don't make headlines, ways that don't require praise, ways that simply allow life to keep moving forward. Over decades of research and millions of real-life observations across American households, experts have identified a small group of everyday abilities that matter more than almost anything else after 70. There are 7 of them. They're not dramatic, they're not impressive, and they're not things people brag about. But together, they quietly separate those who continue to live fully from those who begin to feel trapped inside their own lives. Here's the most important part. And this is where many people feel relief for the first time. You don't need all 7. You don't even need most of them. Studies consistently show that if you can still do 4 or 5, you're doing very well. Better than average. Better than you might think. That's because these abilities work like a safety net. Each one supports the others. Lose one, and life becomes harder. Lose several, and independence starts slipping away. But as long as enough of them are still there, life remains solid, enjoyable, dignified, yours. This isn't about fear. It's about clarity. Because once you know what actually matters, you stop wasting energy worrying about what doesn't. You stop chasing youth. You stop comparing yourself to others. And you start protecting the abilities that quietly protect you. And that's where this story is going next. Because once you understand how a good life is really measured after 70, the next step becomes clear. You begin to look closely, calmly, honestly, at the abilities that are still carrying you forward. The first ability matters more than most people realize. It's not strength, it's not memory, it's not mobility, it's connection. This is ability number 1 out of 7, still having social connections. In America, loneliness has a quiet way of sneaking in. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with a diagnosis. It shows up when no one notices if you don't leave the house for a few days, when your phone doesn't ring, when Sundays feel just like every other day. Public health researchers now call loneliness a silent epidemic. The U.S. Surgeon General has warned that chronic loneliness carries health risks comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That's not emotional language. That's medical reality. But here's the part that surprises many people. You don't need a big social circle. You don't need a busy calendar. You don't need to be surrounded by people all the time. What you need is much simpler. You need to matter to someone. Think about the small places where connection still lives in everyday American life. A diner where the waitress knows your order. A booth you've sat in 100 times. A cup of coffee that tastes better because someone asks. The usual. Or a church on Sunday morning. Not for religion alone, but for routine, for being seen, for the quiet comfort of familiar faces. When you miss a Sunday, someone notices. Someone asks where you were. Someone checks in. That moment, that simple noticing, does more for your health than most supplements ever will. Then there's the phone call. Calling a friend you've known for 40 years. Not to talk about anything important. Just to hear a voice that knows your history. According to studies published in journals like the American Journal of Geriatric Psychiatry, older adults with even 2 or 3 meaningful social connections show lower rates of depression, slower cognitive decline, and better overall health outcomes. Not 50 friends, not constant interaction, just enough connection to remind you that you still belong somewhere, that someone would notice if you didn't show up. The danger isn't being alone. The danger is becoming invisible. That's how people begin to disappear long before they're gone. They stop going out. They stop answering calls. They stop feeling necessary. And once that happens, everything else becomes harder. Movement slows, motivation fades, health follows. But when connection remains, something powerful stays alive. Purpose. A reason to get dressed, a reason to leave the house, a reason to keep your place in the world. This is why social connection sits at the very foundation of aging well. Not as a luxury, not as a bonus, but as a form of protection. If there's still someone who expects to see you at the diner, if there's still someone who notices when you're not at church, if there's still someone whose number you know by heart, you are doing better than you think. Because as long as connection remains, life still has traction. And once that traction is gone, everything else becomes harder to hold on to, which is why the next ability builds directly on this one. Because connection is often the first thing that keeps the rest of life in motion. The second ability is quieter than the first, but just as powerful. This is ability number 2 out of 7. Still being able to cook a simple meal for yourself. Not a big dinner, not a holiday spread, not anything impressive, just food. Eggs and toast, a bowl of canned soup, a simple sandwich made the way you like it. In America, this ability disappears earlier than most people expect. According to data from the National Institute on Aging, difficulty with meal preparation is one of the earliest signs of declining independence in older adults. And when cooking goes, something deeper often goes with it. Choice. Because cooking isn't really about food. It's about deciding. Deciding when you eat, what you eat, how you eat. When someone else takes over that decision, even with good intentions, independence quietly shifts. People don't usually say, "I can't cook anymore." They say things like, "It's just easier if someone else handles it. I don't feel safe using the stove. I don't have the energy." And sometimes those reasons are real. But here's what research consistently shows. Older adults who continue to prepare even very simple meals have better physical health, stronger cognitive function, and lower rates of depression. Because cooking is care. It's the act of feeding yourself, not being fed. It's standing at the counter, even if just for a few minutes. It's choosing what goes on your plate. It's saying, "I still take responsibility for myself." That's dignity. You don't lose that dignity because you use pre-cut vegetables. You don't lose it because you sit on a stool while cooking. You don't lose it because the meal is simple. You lose it when you stop participating altogether. If you can still make eggs in the morning, if you can still heat soup and enjoy it, if you can still put together a sandwich the way you like it, you are doing better than you think. Because as long as you can feed yourself, even simply, you are still actively living your own life. The third ability is often misunderstood. This is ability number 3 out of 7. Still being able to laugh. Not polite laughter, not forced smiles. Real laughter. The kind that comes from watching an old sitcom you've seen 100 times. The kind that slips out when you forget where you put your keys. The kind that shows up when your back hurts, and all you can do is shake your head and laugh at the irony. Laughter isn't denial. It's resilience. Psychologists define laughter as a form of emotional regulation, a way the brain releases stress and resets itself. Studies from Stanford and UCLA have shown that regular laughter lowers stress hormones, improves immune response, and increases pain tolerance in older adults. But more than that, laughter tells you something important. It tells you that your spirit is still flexible. When people stop laughing, it's rarely because life got harder. Life has always been hard. They stop laughing because they've lost the ability to recover emotionally. Everything becomes heavy. Every problem feels permanent. Every inconvenience feels personal. That's when aging becomes exhausting. But when you can still laugh, even quietly, something stays alive inside you. Perspective. The ability to say, "This is frustrating, but it's not the end." Laughing at yourself isn't weakness, it's mastery. It means you're not fighting reality anymore. You're adapting to it. People who retain a sense of humor into their 70s and 80s consistently show better mental health, stronger social bonds, and higher life satisfaction. Not because laughter fixes problems, but because it keeps problems from breaking you. If you can still enjoy a joke, if you can still smile at your own mistakes, if you can still laugh on a bad day, you haven't lost yourself. And that matters more than most people realize. Because when laughter goes, isolation follows. And when isolation follows, everything else begins to slip. Which is why the next ability builds on movement. Because once the spirit is willing, the body often tries to follow. The fourth ability is where the body begins to speak more clearly. This is ability number 4 out of 7. Still being able to walk a short distance outside. Not to the mailbox, not for exercise, just out into the world. Around the block. Taking the dog out, sitting on the porch for a few minutes. In American neighborhoods, this is the invisible line. On one side of it, life still feels open. On the other side, it begins to shrink. Walking outside isn't about distance, it's about access. Access to fresh air, to neighbors, to movement that isn't planned or scheduled. Researchers at Harvard have found that older adults who regularly walk outdoors, even briefly, show lower rates of depression, better cardiovascular health, and stronger cognitive function. But beyond the science, there's something more basic happening. When you walk outside, you remain part of the day. You see who's out. You notice the pace of life. You feel the ground under your feet. When that stops, the world quietly pulls away. People begin to say things like, "I'll go tomorrow. It's too much trouble. I don't feel steady today." And slowly, the house becomes the entire universe. Not because they want it to, because movement became optional. Walking doesn't need to be fast. It doesn't need to be long. It doesn't need to be impressive. It just needs to happen. If you can still step outside and move your body through space, even for 5 minutes, you are still connected to life beyond your walls. That connection matters more than most people realize. Because once the world feels far away, motivation fades, and once motivation fades, the body follows. If you can still walk around the block, if you can still take the dog out, if you can still sit on the porch and feel part of the neighborhood, you are still living outward, not inward, and that outward pull protects you. The fifth ability is the one people rarely talk about. This is ability number 5 out of 7. Still having balance, and not being afraid to fall. In the United States, falls are the leading cause of injury-related death among adults over 65. Most don't happen outside. They happen at home, in the bathroom, on the stairs, on a slick sidewalk in winter. But the real damage often comes later, after the fall. Because even when the body heals, fear takes over. Researchers call it fear of falling syndrome, and it's one of the strongest predictors of declining independence. Once fear sets in, people stop moving. They avoid stairs. They avoid walking outside. They avoid leaving the house. Not because they can't, because they're afraid to try, and fear slowly becomes a cage. Balance isn't about standing on one foot for 10 seconds. It's about trust. Trusting your body to respond, trusting yourself not to freeze. Studies published in the Journal of Aging and Physical Activity show that older adults who maintain balanced confidence are significantly more likely to stay independent, even when their physical strength is average. Because balance gives you freedom. The freedom to step forward, the freedom to turn quickly, the freedom to move without hesitation. When balance goes, life becomes careful. Careful turns into avoidance. Avoidance turns into isolation. But if you can still move without constant fear, if you trust yourself to get up, to steady yourself, to recover, you are still in control of your space. That control is everything. Because independence isn't just about what you can do, it's about what you're not afraid to do. And when fear loosens its grip, life opens back up. Which brings us to the next ability. One that determines whether your body can keep up with the world around it. The sixth ability is often misunderstood. This is ability number 6 out of 7. It's not about having a sharp memory. It's about having a usable one. Memory that's good enough to live safely. Remembering whether you took your medication this morning. Remembering where you parked the car. Remembering who just called you and why. These aren't trivia questions. their safety systems. In the United States, medication errors are one of the leading causes of emergency room visits among older adults. Not because people forget everything, but because they forget one small thing at the wrong time. That's why doctors and gerontologists rarely ask, "Is your memory excellent?" They ask, "Is it reliable? Can you manage your day without constant supervision? Can you keep track of the basics without anxiety?" Research published in the Journal of Gerontology consistently shows that functional memory, memory tied to daily tasks, is a far better predictor of independent living than raw recall ability. And here's the reassuring part. Memory decline is not driven by genetics alone. Lifestyle matters more than most people think. Regular movement, social interaction, adequate sleep, simple routines. All of these protect memory function far more effectively than crossword puzzles alone. People who stay mentally engaged with daily life, conversations, errands, decisions, maintain usable memory longer, even if they forget names or dates from time to time. Forgetting a name isn't the danger. Forgetting how to manage your day is. If you can still organize your life well enough to move through it safely, you are not losing yourself. You are adapting. And that adaptability is what keeps independence intact. The seventh ability is subtle, but decisive. This is ability number 7 out of 7. Still being able to keep up with the world. Not climbing long staircases. Not racing anyone. Just keeping pace. Stepping up onto a curb. Getting onto a bus. Walking up onto the porch without hesitation. These moments happen dozens of times a week. And they quietly determine whether you feel included or left behind. In American cities and suburbs, life doesn't slow down for anyone. Doors open and close, lights change, people move. When your body can still match that rhythm, you remain part of the flow. When it can't, life becomes something you watch instead of join. Physical therapists often describe this ability as functional mobility. It's not about strength alone. It's about timing, coordination, and confidence. Studies in the archives of physical medicine and rehabilitation show that older adults who maintain functional mobility are significantly more likely to remain socially active and independent, even when dealing with chronic conditions. Because keeping up isn't about speed. It's about not being left behind. When you hesitate at every step, when you worry about holding others up, when you feel rushed just existing in public spaces, life begins to feel smaller. But if you can still move through the world without apology, if your body responds when you ask it to, you remain visible, present, included. That sense of inclusion does more than protect your confidence. It protects your identity. Because once you feel left behind, motivation fades. And when motivation fades, participation stops. If you can still step up, step forward, and step into life, even slowly, you are still moving with the world, not away from it. This is usually the moment people don't talk about. Not because it's dramatic, but because it's uncomfortable. He thinks about the people who used to be part of his regular life. Friends who didn't pass away. They just slowly disappeared. One stopped driving after a close call. At first, it was temporary. Then it became permanent. Without a car, the world got smaller. Coffee stopped, church stopped, eventually phone calls stopped too. Another friend is still alive, still breathing, still watching television every day. But he doesn't call anyone anymore, doesn't reach out, doesn't feel like he has anything to say, not because he doesn't care, because isolation changed him. And then there are those who simply stopped going outside. They say it's easier that way. Safer, less effort. But with each day indoors, life pulls a little farther away. Not all at once. Quietly. That's how it happens. Not through loss. Through retreat. Standing there, keys in his hand, he understands something clearly for the first time. He doesn't have everything anymore. He's slower, more careful, less certain than he once was. But he still has enough. Enough ability to leave the house. Enough connection to be noticed, enough confidence to move through his day. And that realization changes how he sees himself. A good life after 70 isn't about having it all. It's about still having enough. Enough to choose, enough to move, enough to belong. That understanding doesn't make him proud. It makes him grateful. And gratitude, at this stage of life, is what steadies everything else. This is where many people misunderstand aging. They believe that when something becomes harder, it means they're failing. That losing an ability means the story is over. It doesn't. After 70, not being able to do something the way you used to is not failure. It's information, a signal. Your body isn't giving up on you, it's asking for a different approach. That's the shift that changes everything. People who age well aren't the ones who refuse to change. They're the ones who adapt early, without shame. They sit on a stool while cooking instead of standing. They buy pre-cut vegetables instead of struggling with a knife. They exercise less intensely, but more consistently. Not because they're weak, because they're smart. Research from the National Institute on Aging shows that small, regular adjustments dramatically reduce injury risk and extend independence far more effectively than pushing through pain or pretending nothing has changed. Adaptation keeps you in the game. It allows you to keep doing what matters, just in a way that respects where you are now. There's dignity in that. There's dignity in choosing safety over pride, in choosing consistency over intensity, in choosing sustainability over appearance. The people who struggle most are often the ones who see adaptation as surrender. It isn't. It's strategy. If you can no longer do something the old way, but you find a new way to keep doing it, you haven't lost anything important. You've protected it. A good life after 70 isn't built on perfection. It's built on smart adjustments made early and often. And when you understand that, aging stops feeling like a downhill slide and starts feeling like a skill you can still learn. For most of our lives, making it meant reaching something, a career, a number, a milestone. But after 70, the definition changes. You've made it if you can still choose. Choose when to get up. Choose what to eat. Choose whether to leave the house or stay in. Choice is freedom. You've made it if you can still take care of yourself. Not perfectly, not the way you used to, but well enough to stay involved in your own life, feeding yourself, managing your day, listening to what your body needs, and responding with respect. That's not decline. That's wisdom. You've made it if you're still connected. If someone would notice if you didn't show up. If someone would answer if you called. If your presence still matters to someone else. Connection keeps you human. When you put those pieces together, choice, self-care, and connection, a different picture of success appears. One that has nothing to do with age, money, or strength. It has everything to do with how you're living right now. And here's the most important part. You don't have to fix your entire life. You don't have to change everything. All it takes is one small action today. Take a short walk, call one person, cook one simple meal. Small actions protect big abilities. They compound quietly. They build momentum without pressure. And over time, they keep you standing. If you can still do these things, even some of them, you're not behind. You're not failing. You've made it. So let me ask you this. Now, comment your age and how many of these 7 you can still do. Be honest with yourself, not for anyone else, just for you. Because awareness is where change begins. And if this story helped you understand your life a little better, if it helped you see your health with more clarity and less fear, go ahead and subscribe. Next time, I'll be sharing 5 everyday foods that research shows can help support and even reverse heart damage after 70. You won't want to miss that. Thank you for spending this time with me, and most of all, take care of your heart.